Atlanta Business Chronicles Biz. Sponsored by Georgia Power and Go Beyond Profit.
Good morning and thanks for joining us. As we prepare to close out 2018, we thought we'd take a look back at some of the top business stories of the year. In 2018, Georgia had high hopes that Amazon might choose Metro Atlanta for its $5 billion second headquarters. The state presented about 20 sites close to transit and able to accommodate 50,000 workers. Amazon did not pick the Peach State, but several other companies did. This year, the bioscience company Shire opened its $1 billion plant in Covington, generating 1,500 jobs. Floor & Decor said it would expand in Cobb County and create 500 positions. Norfolk Southern could generate 800 jobs when it moves its headquarters from Virginia to Midtown. Well, that relocation hinged on one of the biggest commercial real estate deals of the year, the proposed $5 billion overhaul of the Gulch in downtown Atlanta. Norfolk Southern sold 16 acres to the developer CIM Group. The price tag, $115 million. The overhaul of the parking lots and rail lines behind Mercedes-Benz Stadium will be eligible for nearly $2 billion in the form of state and city of Atlanta public financing. CIM Group plans to build offices, shops, entertainment, hotels, and housing. A portion of the apartments in the Gulch must be reserved for low and middle income residents. Well, from Buckhead to Bankhead to neighborhoods near the Beltline, there was a consistent call for more affordable housing options. Earlier this year, the city of Atlanta launched inclusionary zoning rules. They require developers to include affordable units in new apartments and townhomes going up in some of Atlanta's most rapidly gentrifying communities. Analysts say that's been a tough sell to commercial developers who have also seen their costs increase.
You have to make money at what you do in order to continue to do, even if you're doing good work and you are very focused on addressing the needs for workforce housing, affordable housing, community development, you still have to do it in a way that's financially sound and viable. So if a company is not built to do that, there has to be incentives or methods on how they can change their model.
Since inclusionary zoning went into effect last January, only 2 projects have received permits to move forward in the Beltline and West Side overlay districts. Well, more of you went back to work this year. Atlanta's labor force surged to more than 3 million people. The number of jobs in the metro area is at a record high, 2.8 million positions. The State Labor Department reports that during the past year, jobs in Atlanta grew by an average of 5,000 positions a month. With more people working or actively looking for jobs, the unemployment rate in Atlanta has dropped to its lowest level since 2001. In October, Atlanta's jobless rate was 3.4%. That's down from 4.2% during the same time last year. 2018 was a volatile one for stocks. The major averages dipped into correction territory, dropping more than 10% several times. Trade tensions with China and concerns over interest rates, well, those were just 2 topics that gave investors the jitters. But economic expansions globally and tax cuts this year fueled some cautious optimism. We've been tracking some of Georgia's largest publicly traded companies all year. Between January 2nd and December 7th, UPS's stock price dropped 12%. SunTrust saw a 10% decline. Despite a trend toward home improvement, the Home Depot stock price was off 6%. Atlanta-based Intercontinental Exchange, the parent company of the New York Stock Exchange, rose 14%. Coca-Cola bubbled up 11%. And the stock price for Delta Airlines increased a little more than 1%.